Welcome to the show. Good to have you. I'm Matt. If you're new to this is Ear Whiskey, a podcast based around the love of whiskey, but also the conversation that comes from human interactions and where we can sometimes go into weird and occult places from there. This is the first official podcast episode that is recorded like a traditional podcast episode would be, where the focus is the audio format. Up until this point, Ear Whiskey has been based on YouTube um, with wonderful guests, and that thing will continue. And Ear Whiskey on YouTube will continue to be put out just as regularly as a standard podcast. But this year is sort of a sub-segment where there's not going to be any kind of guests on. I'm not going to have anybody on, and this is just me giving you my sort of one-to-one or one-on-one thoughts of different topics and talking about different things in that moves around in my life, that has impacted me, that has changed me, that has sort of giving me a different perspective of life. So I hope that you'll find this just as interesting as the regular Ear Whiskey episodes. If not, I completely understand. But if so, thank you so much for being here. Now, I don't have a name for this segment yet. Maybe we'll go back to calling it Ear Whiskey Rogue. I did that once. Back when Ear Whiskey was supposed to be me and Anthony from New Dram Drinker, talking about whiskey ramblings. And then when I would go rogue from that structure, I would have another guest on. So that was sort of Ear Whiskey Rogue. So yeah, maybe for now let's call this the first Ear Whiskey Rogue episode. So, how are you? It's Christmas. I hope that you're having a wonderful Christmas time with your loved ones. Maybe having plans, maybe having a lot of stress that naturally comes with this season. It's funny how this season, is we all collectively, want to believe and try to tell ourselves and each other that this season is all about relaxing and having, fun and getting into a lower gear and being more mellow. When in fact, December month is one of the most hectic and stressful months of the entire year, if not the most stressful month. Um, Suicide rates also are jumping up in December month, which is very, very depressing. Um, but yeah, I hope that you are able to find some kind of pocket of peace and harmony in this month of December, and hopefully you are going to have some wonderful days in the holiday with your loved ones. I am spending Christmas Eve with my kids and their mother and some friends, and it's going to be great. I really look forward to that, and we're gonna have a great time. Now, one thing I want to touch on is I'm in a bit of a conflict right now, and it's sort of a first world problem type deal. But I recently had Ben on from SMWS, and when we got off air, we actually had a very, very interesting conversation based around Star Wars and the final chapter, the episode 9 in the Skywalker Saga, and he was going to see it that night, um, and uh, and we talked a bit about this, and it made me think about how how Star Wars has become such a weird thing, especially for me. I grew up with the Star Wars, the original trilogy. I was about I was like 5 or 6 years old, like the perfect age to get introduced to Star Wars. You know, your entire imagination is just blown wide open, and you can anything is possible at that age. And I was just blown away by the magic of of those movies. You know, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And when the prequels came out, I was still a kid. So all of that weirdness that surrounded the prequels was never something that I noticed. Um, because I was a kid. I was just watching Star Wars. It was so amazing. And now I sort of find myself in the position of still being that kid wanting to watch Star Wars as an innocent child, but having the perspective of an adult and seeing all the the broken hearts of the Star Wars family, so to speak. And it's before we go any further about Star Wars, it's a very passionate group of people that are in that community, and you know, it's people around the world in all ages. That's the magical thing about this franchise. It's not something that is sort of shoehorned in for a specific demographic. No, it's everyone from the age of 5 till 90, you know, and boys, girls, whatever. It's such a magical franchise, such a magical way of telling morale driven stories to kids that is sort of lost today. You know, they don't tell these stories anymore, and they don't make movies like Star Wars anymore. And now with the when Disney bought Lucasfilm back in 2012, I was sort of like, wow, this sounds weird. Why is Disney buying Lucasfilm? Is there going to be Mickey Mouse running around with a lightsaber and Pluto flying the Millennium Falcon with Goofy? And you know, it was a weird concept to me. Um, and then I saw an interview with Kathleen Kennedy and George Lucas and some other lady who was hosting it, who was hosting that interview. And the whole premise of that was very hopeful. It was very, you know, filled with hope for the future of this franchise. And you know what George Lucas basically said was that he was going to move this treasure trove of stories and goodies to Kathleen Kennedy, to Disney, where he knew that it would have an ongoing life that would protect these stories, that would protect the the life of Star Wars, and continue to allow it to grow. And Kathleen Kennedy basically responded with she would protect it, and you know, it was very basic Hollywood talk, but it sounded like something that was very comforting, and something that would be, wow, this actually sounds like a good idea, you know. And then by 2015, shortly after, you know, they bought it in 2012, and by 2015, December of 2015, they already had The Force Awakens out, which was way too fast, way too fast. And then they and don't get me wrong, The Force Awakens was not a bad movie. It was not a bad movie. I was actually quite surprised when I first saw it. I saw it in the cinema, in the movies with a giant audience, and the perfect way to watch Star Wars. There are kids, there are grown-ups, there are, you know, senior citizens, everybody, you know. And that's what Star Wars can do. It can connect people across generations, genders, cultures. Um, because it is the story about people, no matter your species or origin or heritage, coming together to unite against something big and evil. Um, anyway, was The Force Awakens, and I could see where it sort of was an homage. You could That's the positive way of looking at that. It was an homage, or heavy on the nose fan service to A New Hope, and there was some things that were very much on the nose about that. You know, the trench run and having a a Death Star basically, or Star Killer base, and some of those things were a bit too much. But there was potential for a sequel trilogy. You know, there was potential for having something for the next installment, which would be episode, what was that be, 8, to really latch on to and develop. You know, who was Snoke, who was Rey, where could Finn and Poe grow from here, and all of this. There was the potential of growing a story, and then Ryan Johnson came about. And I don't want to come across as another Ryan Johnson hater, but I am. Basically, what he and Kathleen Kennedy did, you know, the Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader of Lucasfilm, basically came in and just butt fucked the entire trilogy, the entire legacy of Star Wars, um, by forcing social justice themes and feminism and all kinds of political bullshit down the throat of this amazing franchise that had so much potential, and completely took a huge dump on everything that J.J. Abrams with The Force Awakens sort of set up to be answered. And bad humor and subplots that made no fucking sense, and just an outright awful, awful Star Wars movie. You know, I'd rather watch The Phantom Menace or you know, Attack of the Clones. I actually kind of dig the prequels, you know, but maybe it's because the magic of the kid is still in me. But the Last Jedi is just a mess, a complete fucking mess of a movie. It was, my plan was to go and see it at the cinema, just like I did The Force Awakens, because maybe the movie was bad, but there would be that feeling of going to the cinema. And I never expected The Last Jedi to be bad. When you saw the trailer and Luke standing there in the cave in the silhouette and saying, "It's time for the Jedi to end," it was like, wow, what the fuck? This is taking it to to another level, you know, another positive level of where you're playing around with ideas and where you are sort of trying to push on what people may expect. And you can say that Ryan Johnson did that and Kathleen Kennedy did that with The Last Jedi, subverting expectations. But there's a difference between doing something that no one thought of doing and that was really, wow, this is magical and different, and then just doing something that is stupid. That is still different. That is still something that subverts expectations, but it doesn't make the situation or the happening a good thing. It just makes it a shock for the value of the shock, not for the value of driven story or character or plot points or anything. It's just about, that's why the same thing with like horror movies, where it's like it's really not scary, but you get scared from loud music and scary imagery, but the story is not really frightening. It's just for the purpose of making you scared, not by telling something disturbing. Same thing here. It was not. It's not intelligent to weaponize light speed. You know, that's not intelligent. That is breaking almost 40 years of Star Wars legacy. Um, that is ignoring in-universe rules that you just can't do. You can't do that kind of thing. And and I'm not saying this as sort of, oh, you can't do that as a personal preference, but looking at it objectively speaking, you cannot do things like that. You cannot just make new decisions, because that means that every movie going forward and every movie that came before, needs to abide by this stupid rule now, because now this is a canon thing. Now Lightspeed is not tapping into sort of a parallel universe wormhole thing where you calculate your route and travel by, by Lightspeed. No, now Lightspeed just means going really fast. Now Lightspeed means that you can just, it is basically just stepping on the gas in your car and just going as fast as you can. And by going as fast as you can destroy your obstacles. That is basically what they're doing, weaponizing lightspeed like that. And it was just terrible, and they killed off Snoke. And the only good thing about, The Last Jedi, I would say, the only cool thing that was different and new was that, to me at least, and you may be disagreeing, but was that force connection conversation thing between Kylo Ren and Rey. I think that was a clever way of doing it, and it is, it is sort of the first and only the closest thing two Star Wars characters ever been to doing it on screen. That thing where they're touching hands, very intimate, and I thought that was a clever idea, and I still do. But there's so much wrong with that movie. Why kill off Snoke? And forcing J.J. Abrams in The Rise of Skywalker in the ninth film to find some clever way to justify that. Why build up a character and then just kill him? I know it's again subverting expectation, but it's stupid. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make sense. It's not good storytelling, Ryan Johnson. It's bad storytelling, you idiot. You don't build up something just to destroy it. Not in terms of storytelling, at least. Why do you think The Emperor was built up over not 3 movies? I wouldn't say that, because A New Hope was basically there was a mention of an emperor, but yeah, you could maybe say 3 movies. Why do you think there was a build up? Because it was important. Because it was the grand puppet master behind the scenes. It was never intended for the sequel trilogy to have Palpatine in it. I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. And there are people out there way more into the whole canon and the expanded universe and all the stories and novels. I'm not into that. I'm sort of like a movie and series kind of guy. But the way it just presents itself as movies and as a whole trilogy, it was never the intention to bring back Palpatine. No way. Snoke was gonna be the big baddie, a mirror image of Palpatine, but a Palpatine for this new trilogy. It was never the intention of having Palpatine back. It was the intention to have Snoke being the big baddie that I don't know, maybe Kylo Ren would overcome, and like Vader did with Palpatine, and by Rey's help. I don't know what the plan was, but I believe there was a plan, a very loose plan, having Palpatine survive. No, sorry, having Snoke live to be in the uh, ninth movie. But no, we couldn't do that. We don't get any kind of cohesive story. We don't get any kind of matching or character development or anything, because there is no plan from Disney's side of things. They just went into this with sort of like, let's just make Star Wars movie. It will sell and people will love it just because it's Star Wars. No, they won't. It's bullshit. It's so fucking wrong. And the way they have treated it, the way they have treated Star Wars fans, the way they disrespect George Lucas, the legacy that they are making millions and millions of dollars of, they're just fucking taking a huge piss all over it, laughing all the way to the bank. And my proposition for all this would be, get Kathleen Kennedy the fuck out of Lucasfilm and have Dave Filoni get on as president of Lucasfilm, because someone needs to correct this turkey before she takes it further down this stupid rabbit hole that it's on. Now, I haven't watched The Mandalorian yet. I've heard it's really good, and I really look forward to that. And but that is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who made that show, and from what I've seen, from the reviews I've seen, from everything going on there, it really seems like they finally nailed something in the Star Wars universe after Disney taking over the reins of this franchise. And I hope they're going to do the same thing with Kenobi, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which I really look forward to, because I think that should have been something from the very beginning. Everybody has been talking about Kenobi, and Ewan McGregor is the perfect age, and that could be set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and there's been a ton of ideas and tons of fan theories and fan ideas out there for a while, and I'm completely on with that. So I look forward to that, given the fact that The Mandalorian seems to be doing as so well as it does. And that really speaks to the creativity and the integrity of Dave Filoni and also John Favreau, I guess. Because Kathleen Kennedy has proven that she has no competence and no capability to run Lucasfilm through Disney. She has no idea of what a Star Wars fan really want and what actually sells. She has no idea how to keep an audience. She's more focused on putting social themes in the movies and making all kinds of political and um, political and social comments than she is telling a good science fiction adventure or just a good fantasy film. Um, so get Kathleen Kennedy the fuck out of there, because Dave Filoni with The Mandalorian has proven that he should be the one running Lucasfilm. He knows the legacy. He knows the entire myth, the all the myths and legends and every nook and cranny there is in the entire Star Wars universe. He's the guy. He's the guy who knows stuff. He was brought up by George Lucas. He was a Padawan of George Lucas, if you will. Back when they made the Clone Wars, the first time they did that. Um, and it just proves that Ingeborg. And it just proves that the fact that they have been able to do this, make The Mandalorian a success to the majority of Star Wars fans, speaks to the fact that they know what they're doing, in spite of the fact that they are fighting a battle that is begun within their own regime, that is begun by their president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, and Ryan Johnson. And I guess to some extent J.J. Abrams. But yeah, so that sort of brings me to my dilemma, which I started off this episode with. I don't know if I should go see Rise of Skywalker in the movies, in a cinema. I don't know if I want to spend the money on it. I'm terribly frustrated with Star Wars lately. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I didn't watch The Last Jedi in the movies, and I'm so glad I didn't at the cinema. I'm so glad they saved that entry, the ticket price. And I remember with The Last Jedi, I watched it when it was on some streaming service. Um, and I watched it over and over again because I wanted it to be so good. Kind of what I have a feeling that people did when the prequels came out, when the Phantom Menace premiere first, going back to the crime scene in a way, trying to make your peace with it, trying to figure out, trying to convince yourself that this was actually a good story. But no, it's just bad. It's just bad all over. So I'm on the edge. Let me know. What do you think? That's why I'm doing this. What do you think I should do with Rise of Skywalker? Should I go to the cinema and spend the money, or should I wait for it to air on some streaming service, which will probably only be Disney Plus at this point, right? It won't be Netflix or any kind of other platform, since Disney has their own now. So and also let me know, is Disney Plus something you would recommend spending money on? A subscription to that, because to me it just seems like a money grab. There's a lot of Disney movies out there, but are they truly? And also very good. There's more to Disney than just the fuck ups of Lucasfilm. I know that. But would you recommend that Disney Plus is something that I should take a look at and get my hands on, let me know. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Ear Whiskey. Before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to my amazing patrons. You guys are rock stars. You guys make this journey fun. You guys make this something that I really look forward to doing, because I know that you guys out there are in fact responding to this very positively. And if you, dear listener, are interested in supporting Ear Whiskey, go to patreon.com/earwhiskey and check out the tiers over there and what's in it for you. So that was it. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, everybody.